Hi, I'm Richard Friedman, and welcome to my video cartoon for July 28th, 2025. Here we have the first part of this video cartoon is President Trump being asked by a reporter if he would consider pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. Okay, that's the accomplice of Jerry Epstein. She was convicted on, I think, 5 counts of trafficking minors, and that's detailed later in the introduction, but I want to first give you the idea of the cartoon here. And there is the United States. Remember, there's Air Force One in the background here, and President Trump is about to depart here for Scotland. In the middle of this Jeffrey Epstein stuff, he's taken off for Scotland and spending some time at his Turnberry golf course over there and mixing business with pleasure, as it was said. And here it is. And that was the first part of that cartoon and his response to that reporter on whether or not he would consider pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, okay, who is currently serving a 20-year prison term for having been convicted of trafficking minor young girls in a sex trafficking operation thing. So that's the really part one of the cartoon, and part two of the cartoon is basically President Trump's dream. He has having this dream where he after that meeting. After saying what he said at the airport, he has this dream here of actually pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, and she's exiting the prison, and he's crowning her. And that's part two of this cartoon here. Okay, so she got out of a prison cell, and there's President Trump there, and he's crowning her with a crown, and as I crown her queen for a day, being crowned for queen for a day, as she is pardoned, and congratulating her on her pardon. Okay, so that's basically the setup for the cartoon. I'm going to now read you the introduction to lay the groundwork, so you get the idea of what it's what it's about. Okay, so let's just leave it at this here, because that will be. And we got here, Richards, Trump, Ghislaine Maxwell pardon dream. Richards, Trump, Ghislaine Maxwell pardon dream. This is President Trump's dream, where he crowns her America's queen for a day. Given in Maxwell's interview days ago with President Trump's defense lawyer, now Deputy U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche, Maxwell received a limited immunity which allowed her to freely answer Blanche's questions without fear that her answers could later be used against her. So in this is now President Trump's former attorney, Todd Blanche, who performed very well for President Trump, now is the Deputy Attorney General under Pam Bondi at the Justice Department, and by himself, nobody else around, just him and Ghislaine. They're nice and cozy. I don't know whether having this interview, I guess it was a series of interviews, and the idea here was to get at the truth. Now, Ghislaine has pleaded, basically she's going to appeal this court ruling, this judgment against her on those counts. I think it was 5 counts, or 4 or 5 counts, and of sex trafficking as an accomplice of Jeffrey Epstein. So she's appealing that. So she feels that justice is on her side, and she's got now being interviewed by President Trump's former attorney, now Deputy Attorney General of the United States under Pam Bondi, with nobody around in a series of interviews. So the optics there are a little bit questionable, I would say, but that's as far as I'm going to go on that one. But that, again, that's for you to decide, you know. So what's going to come out of that, we'll see. Okay, so that's basically laying the groundwork here and going on with this introduction. Okay, again, Maxwell received limited immunity, which allowed her to freely answer Blanche's questions. Again, that's President Trump's former attorney, now Deputy Attorney General. He was his defense attorney. Again, I emphasize that because I think that's an important point here to understand the optics of this. Could have been better if they would have had somebody there present there. If you want to do it that way, you should have had somebody present there to in my opinion, to make it the whole thing look like a little better than it might have looked. Okay, that's just my opinion, and I'm injecting that. Okay, questions without fear that her answers could later be used against her. So anything she says, whether it's a little bit one way or a little bit the other way, it can't be used against her. And this kind of immunity deal is often granted to prosecutors who are seeking to make cooperators in a criminal case. So it could be argued here, based upon, anybody could argue that the question is, will Todd Blanche be able to step into the role as Deputy Attorney General and step away from his role as President Trump's defense attorney? Can he do that? That is a $64,000 question. I think any rational person would have to ask themselves. And I put that to you, and you decide. Okay? Are seeking to make up in a criminal case. And here's the thing about this cartoon is that, and this type of immunity is called a queen for a day deal. So the person now is queen for a day. In other words, whoever in this case it's Ghislaine Maxwell, but it's in a general sense, anybody who gets this, if they call it a queen for a day, not because of because basically they are permitted here to say what they want without anything being used against them. Basically it's limited, but there's still a broad area where they have freedom to speak whatever they say without being prosecuted. So I remember that show when I was a little kid. I used to watch Queen for a Day. I tell you, I watched it because it was on right before the Howdy Doody show. I think the Howdy Doody show started at around 4 or 5 o'clock, and this was 1 hour before that. So I'd sit on my little bench in that big wooden thing we had, 12-inch screen, big wooden box, and I'd sit on a little bench there, a little stool, waiting for my mother to prepare dinner, and I'd be watching this. And how it worked is on Queen for a Day is you got a chance. The ladies, they had 3 contestants or so, and each would tell a sad story. And when they got through with their stories, each of them, the audience would applaud for how sad the story was. When they came to make the judgment, after all 3 of them, then they asked the audience for applause as who had the saddest story. And the one who got they had an applause meter, and the one who got the loudest applause, the highest meter, would become Queen for a Day. And then they crowned her. With a robe and a crown on her head, and she was smiling, and that's how the show went. You see, and then of course I wasn't watching that for that. I was waiting for Howdy Doody to come on. But I remember it was a guy named John Daly. I just remember that somehow. So that was it. So here I now present to you is basically, I'm going to finish this up right now. I want to finish the introduction here. Maxwell in her role in facilitating Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse underage girls, and President Trump's non-committal to report his question on whether he would pardon Ghislaine Maxwell before departing to Scotland. So here's President Trump at the airport now, ready to head off for Scotland on Air Force One, and he's asked by this reporter if he would consider pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. And here was his response right here, okay? Obviously, this is no time to be talking about pardons. It's something I haven't thought about. I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I haven't thought about. So that was his exact response here. That here's Air Force One. Here's President Trump replying to that reporter ahead of leaving for Scotland. Okay, there he is. Okay, now the second part of this cartoon is in the dream President Trump had about pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. Here is Ghislaine. She's out of a prison cell, and she just got out through this door here. She's out. The door's locked behind her, and she's out. And President Trump is crowning her. And here how that went in Richard's Trump dream. Okay, let's call it that. Okay, and there is Ghislaine here. She's thumbs up. She's very proud to receive her crown from President Donald Trump here. There she is. And there is President Trump here, crowning her. There he is. That was her cell where she had been, and the door is locked. She's out, and President Trump says this: "It's my great honor to announce that Ghislaine Maxwell has been granted a full pardon." There it is, granted a full pardon. Okay? Congratulations, Ghislaine. Then she gives thumbs up. Congratulations, Ghislaine. Your words of truth have ended the Democrats' Jeffrey Epstein scam. I crown you America's queen for a day. And there she is crowned queen for a day by President Trump, in line with her queen for a day deal, a testimony deal that she got through the Justice Department. So I picked that up on that. That was a queen for a day deal that she got with the Justice Department on limited immunity, and now she's gotten here queen, America's queen for a day, and the crown, and this is taking that limited immunity to a new height with President Trump basically here. Well, I don't know if you don't want to call it immunity, because if President Trump's pardoning her, then there's no immunity, because all the charges against her are wiped away. So I would just say that this is her crown as America's queen for a day, because she's getting out of jail here. She's been in jail a while, I think. So there I think maybe a couple of years or so. So here it is. I said maybe, I'm not sure. So, but I know she had been in jail for sure. So there it is, and that's how the Queen for a Day theme came into this cartoon. Okay, a full pardon, and there she is crowned America's Queen for a Day, and thumbs up from Ghislaine Maxwell. And here, Ghislaine Maxwell gets the last word with a thumbs up. Or the last expression, let's say that. Okay. All right, folks. Thank you for watching my video. God bless you, and I'll see you next time. Hang in there. Bye.